Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to welcome you, please, to this event tonight. And on behalf of the League of Women Voters and the Latino Outreach Council, we are welcoming you to this forum. We will have the candidates for 4th District Supervisor for the San Luis Obispo County Board of Supervisors answer your questions this evening. Just so you know, if you're new to the area, new to this chamber, on this side of the chamber, right down the hall, are the restrooms. You are to please silence your cell phones now. Thank you. We will remain courteous and respectful while the questions are being asked and while the questions are being answered. We would appreciate that very much. We also would appreciate it if we're all very quiet while we're being respectful. When your questions are ready, the runners and the retrievers will come gather your questions and bring them up to the young ladies sitting over here, and they will make sure that we don't have any duplicate questions that need to be asked. And on behalf of the Latino Outreach Council, I would like to just give you a brief background. So the Latino Outreach Council is a part of this beautiful San Luis Obispo County. They are dedicated to facilitating the equal and full participation of all members of the Latino community in the life and affairs of San Luis Obispo County. They have a passion. The passion is to arrange the local Latino community within opportunities to connect with individuals and businesses alike in order to build a stronger network of Latinos. We aim to celebrate the Hispanic culture and provide information about the resources and events available throughout this county to the Latinos. Today, the Latino Outreach Council is the leading organization of the San Luis Obispo County that provides advocacy and outreach to the community's Latino population. They will accept any and all donations, and if you would like to be on the board, please let them know. They would graciously accept you. And now may I present Ed Cabrera, and he's going to talk to you, please, about the League of Women Voters, and also will be the moderator. Thank you.
I get to check off one more item in my bucket list, be introduced by Miss Etiquette. Thank you. On behalf of all the volunteers representing the women voters of San Luis Obispo County, we welcome you to tonight's forums. The League celebrates its 100th anniversary just a couple of years ago, and it's considered the gold standard nationally for its long history of nonpartisan stance when it comes to candidates. In this portion of tonight's program, we welcome Arroyo Grande Council Member Jimmy Paulding and San Luis Obispo County Supervisor Lynn Compton. Thank you for offering your service to our community, and thank you for making yourself available to our community tonight. We are aware that we are pressed for time tonight. Therefore, we shall be strict about the time limits on the candidates' responses. Helping us with this important task is our volunteer timekeeper, Cynthia Pretzel. She will be seated so that the candidates may easily see her. She will raise her paddle to tell them when they have 1 minute left on their time, then 30 seconds, and finally, when they must stop because their time has expired. We ask that the audience realize that any reaction, even positive, to a candidate's remarks may be disruptive and may distract them from using their time effectively. So please, refrain from any interruption. In this vein, I remind you once again that you take this moment to join me in silencing your smartphones. We will be covering a number of topics tonight. Questions from the audience are submitted in writing. Question cards are available from the League of Women Voters, our greeters, and our runners. Cards may be submitted to them before the forum begins and at any time during the forum. Our volunteer runners, Sharon Whitney, Erica Costello, Cynthia Pretzel, and Alex Carlin will circulate amongst the audience to make available a list of the topics and single cards that audience members can use to write their questions. Please, only one question per card. The questions will then go to our sorters, to my left, Sue Bonnets, Marilee Hyman, and Shelley Higginbotham. They will choose the questions that best address the topics without repetition and within the realm of the candidate's jurisdiction. We will begin tonight's forum with opening statements of 3 minutes per candidate, speaking in order of the lot drawn previously to the forum. We will rotate the order of questions to the candidates so that in this way we will ensure that each candidate has an opportunity to speak. There will be time for a limited number of questions for each candidate. Audience members should be aware that not all questions can be asked in the limited time available. Answers will be limited to 1.5 minutes. At the end of the questions, each candidate will make a closing statement of 3 minutes. Closing statements will be in reverse order of the opening statements. So to begin with, as I mentioned, oh, by the way, if you're interested in seeing a recording of this forum, it will be available on Channel 20 and also on the website of the League of Women Voters. So as agreed on previously, the opening statement from Councilman Paulding.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today, and I want to first extend my appreciation to the League of Women Voters and the Latino Outreach Council, and all of you for being here today, participating in our democracy. It's great to see everybody here. I'm Jimmy Paulding. I'm running for 4th District County Supervisor. I currently serve on the Arroyo Grande City Council, where I've been serving for the last 4 years. I also have the pleasure of serving on a number of regional boards, the Air Pollution Control District Board, the Regional Transportation Authority, and the San Luis Obispo Council of Governments Board. In addition to that, I bring a strong resume and years of experience as a city and regional planner and project manager. I had originally gotten my bachelor's degree from Cal Poly in city and regional planning, and then later my law degree. And I also practice law and own a small business. The 3 areas I'm really focused on and why I'm running for county supervisor include unity. We need to unite as a community, and we need our county board of supervisors to collaborate to focus on the issues that matter. What we've seen from the board majority and the incumbent is welcoming the national politics of division that we see in our country right into the business of our county board of supervisors. And that has detracted or distracted from some of the issues that we need to address in our community. A testament to that is the fact that I've been endorsed by 3 of my colleagues on the AG City Council, one a Republican, one a Democrat, and one an independent. And that's because I work across the aisle to focus on the issues that matter and get stuff done. We've been able to lead on a regional recycled water project, protect small businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic, fully fund our police and fire departments, and work on a number of housing and homeless programs and policies. The second thing I want to do is get special interests out of our local government and really restore the integrity, transparency, and accountability that we need to restore the public's trust in our local government. And finally, we need to stay focused on the big issues. Everything from water to homelessness to crime and public safety, housing, seniors, jobs, the economy, and the labor shortage. We need to basically get the partisan politics out of local government and do what's best for the interests of all of us in the community. And I want to serve everybody. I've had the pleasure so far of having tremendous support from the community. I have a whole host of bipartisan endorsements, and we've been able to run a truly grassroots campaign. We've got thousands of volunteers that are out there walking and knocking doors, making phone calls, and doing the hard work to change the Board of Supervisors and change it for the better. So with that, I would just humbly ask for your vote on June 7th. Thank you so much.
Supervisor Compton.
Good evening, and thanks for being here tonight. I want to thank Latino Outreach. This was an organization that was started by Cacho Asajian, if you recall that, in Napomo, and I've been working with them for 7 years. For the past 7 years, I've had the honor of helping my community work towards solutions that make life better for those living in San Luis Obispo County. Over my 2 terms, I've worked to fulfill the promises I made when I first ran for office and have delivered on major initiatives, including those that promote our economic engines such as tourism and agriculture. I've worked on successful initiatives that attract businesses by promoting their ability to hire employees and by advocating for affordable housing projects. And as the lead agency for the last 2 years, we've focused on protecting lives during the COVID pandemic. For many years, I've been the county's representative on a panel making critical decisions regarding the reuse of Diablo Canyon's Parcel P site to ensure our continued economic stability in light of the Diablo Canyon closure. I've promoted safe neighborhoods, fully funded law enforcement, and voted to prioritize county roads and maintenance of our county infrastructure without increasing taxes. We've completed or are in progress on many projects such as a new jail, a new probation facility, multiple major drainage projects, a state-of-the-art animal shelter, a Napomo skate park, and a new airport terminal, to name a few. I've worked to tackle critical issues in this county that we have faced, such as water supply and homelessness. In fact, probably the most important board meeting we just had was this past Tuesday, where we rolled out a countywide plan put forward by the County of San Luis Obispo to develop an aggressive program to tackle the homelessness issue, and a program that has overwhelming support from every one of the 7 incorporated cities, including Arroyo Grande, our nonprofit partners, and local homeless organizations with accountability. We did this at a board meeting with public testimony and public outreach from organizations and partners, including the city of Arroyo Grande, and not at a homeless debate where candidates had non-existent discussions and only presented talking points, as my opponent brags about. I fought to eliminate redundancy and fraud, such as what occurred with the Integrated Waste Management Association, or the IWMA, a corrupt organization that culminated with criminal charges and that we fought to uncover for years, and money transfers occurring with public facility fee quaffers that robbed Napomo of our designated park funding dollars. I've worked to protect agriculture and have the support of almost every farmer in South County, and have developed resources and measures to protect our critical water basins and implemented conservation plans. I traveled to Washington to work with the federal government and Army Corps of Engineers to purchase the Salinas Water Reservoir and install spillway gates to double the water holding capacity as a drought protection measure, and have worked to pursue a Lopez Lake spillway project to enable more lake capture. We're working with the County of Santa Barbara on a joint desalination project. I voted to approve a new state water management tool, giving the option to get more state water allocations into South County from Santa Barbara. This is of huge significance. I haven't talked about what I would do if elected. I've proven that I can get things done, some things with cooperation from the entire board, and some things on a 3-2 vote. Nonetheless, they were accomplished. You will hear a long list tonight.
We have a number of questions on a variety of topics. The first topic is the environment. Supervisor Compton, the question is, what policies and programs do you support to ensure a sustainable water supply for the county?
All right, let me get my notes. So we've been working on water for 7 years since I've been on the board. Some of the things that we've done for water have been countywide. Some of them have been related to South County. I just talked about the Salinas Dam, taking ownership of the Salinas Dam project. We've extended our state water contracts until the year 2035. We've worked on cloud seeding, specifically down here with Lopez Lake. We're in talks with Santa Barbara to move a joint desalination plant forward. They're actually working on it right now. We have state water exchanges that we've done at the county, and we've negotiated exchange programs with Santa Barbara's County Flood and Water Conservation District. Our San Luis County has more water allocations than we can use. Santa Barbara County has less than they can use, and we trade capacity for water now. We have multi-year exchanges and can ensure that water won't be lost anymore. The county has worked on several reclamation and reuse projects. Pismo Beach has embarked on a project for water reclamation with regional groundwater sustainability programs. Napomo is not included in that because we're part of what's called an adjudicated basin, so the state tells us and the courts tell us how we have to manage the water down there. South County Sanitation District is working on feasibility options for reclaimed water, and we have interagency agreements for funding that we address. We've worked with the Lopez Reservoir project to increase working capacity. And the Napomo NCSD is bringing in 300 extra acre-feet of water a year as part of the adjudicated basin to go to residents that live on the mesa. We have a low reservoir resource plan for Zone 3 residents.
Thank you. Councilman Paulding.
Thank you. Water is a huge issue. As I walk and knock doors, and I've walked thousands actually now in South County, it's the number one concern that comes up. People are worried about the drought. They want to see leadership, and they want to know that their elected officials are working to deliver new water sources, safe, reliable drinking water sources. I've been proud as an Arroyo Grande City Council member to work to advance the Central Coast Blue Recycled Water Project, a joint project with Pismo Beach and Grover Beach, where we are going to take our wastewater that's currently being sent out to the ocean, treat it, inject it back into the ground, protect the seawater, or the groundwater basin from seawater intrusion, and pump it back out to yield an extra 1,000 feet of water per year. That's a great project, and we also need to support conservation. That's another thing that we need to encourage in terms of public education. We've funded our Cash for Grass program in Arroyo Grande, so you can replace your lawn with a drought-tolerant landscape. We need to support those kinds of programs. I've also worked during the pandemic to help co-found the Central Coast Economic Recovery Initiative, which partnered with Cal Poly to study the Phillips 66 oil refinery as a potential future site because they've announced that they're closing for desalination. So we need to be looking out. We need to be looking into the future. And finally, the project that Ms. Compton mentioned regarding the Salinas Dam would require a $30 to $50 million retrofit in order to make that happen. And so you never hear the cost aspect when you're listening to her. I just wanted to point that out.
The next question is also on energy. And Councilman Paulding, you lead with this question. What is your position on community choice energy?
I was proud as an Arroyo Grande City Council member to bring community choice energy to the city. Oftentimes, well, in fact, I'll talk about our campaign back in 2018 when I formerly ran for county supervisor. My opponent sent out a mailer that said it would raise electricity rates by 30%, which is categorically untrue. In fact, we've been able to reduce electricity rates by at least 2% year over year in Arroyo Grande after joining the program, not to mention work toward actually procuring renewable energy. Now, because the county board of supervisors has decided not to pursue community choice, everybody who lives in the unincorporated area of the county has seen their electricity bills go up by 16% because PG&E raised rates and Central Coast Community Energy didn't. So there's an example of a fiscally irresponsible decision driven by a political ideology, calling programs like community choice that actually allow for local control, where we have local elected officials sitting on that board, calling them socialist programs, which is just incredibly divisive and problematic, and again, fiscally irresponsible. I support that program.
Supervisor Compton.
I do not support that program, no surprise. This came up in the last debate, and last time Jimmy ran against me, and he made it the entire issue of the campaign, which nobody understood. So I have a card here. This was sent out to a customer in Arroyo Grande. This is their bill, community choice aggregations literature that they promote and send to their customers. The average PG&E monthly bill for this constituent, and by the way, this is the best case scenario of the ones I could find, was $122.60 a month versus community choice aggregation 3C, $122.50. So for the big deal that he makes about this is 10 cents a month savings, $1.20 a year savings, and he wants to take away your right to choose. This is a program where you don't have a choice. You are opted in automatically, then you have to pull yourself out if you want to get out of it. If it was such a great program, let people opt in and you wouldn't have any problem with me. Mr. Paulding just mentioned that local control, but politicians are making the choices. He's exactly right. Politicians are making the choices. If there's any chance of any profitability with this program, the politicians decide where the money goes. They could put it to any pork program they want. It doesn't go back to the consumer. It's a boondoggle. I will never vote for this at the county, and I stated that last time, and I maintain my stance on that.
Supervisor Compton, you lead on the next question. How would you work to expand sustainable power and infrastructure in the county? and sustainable power, as in solar and wind energy?
Okay, so we're already doing that right now. We have one of the largest solar plants in the county. It's in the Carissa Plains. We just had a groundbreaking on another solar plant that's right on Highway 1 by Cuesta College that powers pretty much all of the county entities. Right now, I have been for 7 years on a task force before it was REACH, it was the EVC, to look at options for renewable energy once the decommissioning is complete with Diablo Canyon. The direction is basically 3 sites off the coast of Morro Bay for wind power. BOEM owns the leases. The leases will go up for sale probably in November or toward the end of the year. When similar leases went up for sale in New York, they raised over $7 billion. It will be a boon for our economy. It produces 3 gigabytes of energy, which is actually more than PG&E. The problem is it's not as dependable as nuclear energy, which is what we've had. I've advocated for Diablo to stay open. We wrote a letter to the governor wishing to have it stay open and advocating for that. I believe we had 3 supervisors. Dawn recused herself and Supervisor Gibson refused that. But I fully support alternate energy. Diablo was green energy. I don't understand the reason for wanting to close that, but that was green energy. But we have to get through these next few months and have the leases let, and I think you'll see that off the coast. It will bring jobs to our county.
Councilman.
So just want to go back to community choice because it's a renewable energy program that actually creates a fund for us to build renewable energy projects locally. Millions of dollars are allocated in that fund, and if we were able to avail ourselves in this county of that fund, we could be doing a lot more to essentially move toward a renewable energy objective. One of the programs is incentives for electric cars. You heard from my opponent that with the community choice program, you don't have a choice. But then she said, oh, you do, you just have to opt out. And so it's those kinds of manipulations that mislead the public and destroy the public's trust. I'm a firm proponent of offshore wind. I think that is the future. There are so many opportunities associated with Diablo Canyon as we look at repurposing Parcel P, the industrial site, whether that's partnerships with Cal Poly, conserving the surrounding lands, perhaps an offshore wind port. I also think that the future of the Phillips 66 oil refinery is something that we should explore. And I was proud to create that partnership with Cal Poly to have students study that. They looked at whether that facility could be a location for battery storage, because that's one of the issues that we will encounter as solar produces a lot of electricity during the day, and then peak demand goes up at night, and we need to be able to store that energy. So we need the kind of leadership that's driven by vision, not just partisan politics. Thank you.
The next question is about county waste. Will the county's decision to pull out of the waste management group make a difference in the cost of waste removal in our county? Councilman Paulding.
What happened with the Integrated Waste Management Authority is incredibly troubling. For those of you that haven't followed that, you're hearing misleading statements from the incumbent about that organization. So let me give you some context. The Integrated Waste Management Authority is comprised of all 5 county supervisors and one elected official from each of the 7 cities here on the Central Coast, as well as a member from the Community Services District. The Board of Supervisors was very unhappy, the board majority, led by the incumbent, that they were outnumbered on that board, which decided to ban styrofoam because it's problematic for the environment and human health. There are plenty of statements on record from the incumbent saying, I don't like being in the minority. So what they did, they decided to pull the county out from our Integrated Waste Management Authority, this regional body that the county should be leading, especially when costly state mandates are being essentially foisted upon us without any funding, unfunded mandates. And so in that difficult time, they torpedoed an organization that was working to address some current concerns. Now, it did have one particular secretary that was embezzling funds. That's something that should be addressed, not condoned. That person should be prosecuted. But do you dismantle and destroy an entire functioning organization because of one employee? No, you reform it. By the way, the incumbent was on the board when all of that was happening. So who was paying attention?
Supervisor Compton.
Yes, the Integrated Waste Management, or IWMA, was the most corrupt organization this county has ever had. We had probably 3 individuals that worked there. One left and shredded all the documents before he left for years and years. The other was indicted by Dan Dow, and it was corrupt. Yes, we were in the minority. We were 5 members of the Board of Supervisors with cities participating, so 5 members of the board with 7 other members. Our vote was dwarfed and diluted, especially by these cities that wanted to implement all kinds of crazy programs that us in the county didn't want. They wanted the bag ban. This organization actually had fines for people that handed out straws at restaurants or for plastic bags, jail time in the ordinances. It was a crazy, out-of-control organization. Yeah, they banned styrofoam, and then we had an agreement that we'd go back and revisit that, and they pulled a vote out of a hat and said, no, we're not going back to revisit it. It's the green waste mandates coming down from the state are crazy. They affect restaurants more so in the cities than in the county. This is why the county doesn't want to participate. If we participate in that, we're picking up the cost of the cities. The mandates are crazy. There was a forensic audit. I challenge all of you to read the forensic audit. It was unbelievable what went on in that organization. And by the way, right now, the IWMA fees for currently those people participating in it are 3.5% on top of the gross bills. The county's only charging 2%, and we pulled out of this organization. It was the best decision we ever made.
The next topic is county governance. Supervisor Compton, do you support the establishment of an independent citizens redistricting commission to draw district lines following the 2030 census?
No, I do not support that. We lost our last vote in the assembly with Jordan Cunningham's seat for people that were paying attention to that. An independent redistricting commission took away our assemblyman, Jordan Cunningham, and put us into 2 different assembly districts. North County went into one, South County went into another. It diluted our power in this county right now. We have no power in the legislature thanks to an independent decision. Commission. If you recall when Senator Sam Blakesley was in office 10 years ago, same thing happened. Sam Blakesley's out of office now with an independent commission. We got John Laird and then Bill Monning after Blakesley was redistricted out by an independent commission. Bill Monning did very little down here in San Luis County because he wasn't from this area. He was from Santa Cruz. Look at what an independent redistricting commission has done by statute in Santa Barbara County. North County has no vote compared to South County. Why did we do the redistricting rules we did, and how did we do it? We got our rules from the state. We followed the rules. We have a good map. The map is not gerrymandered. The court has voted with us on 2 past challenges that have been brought forward. A gerrymandered map with an independent commission is what happened the last time when they dipped down from North County, picked up Cal Poly, and put it in Supervisor Arnold's district. So no, I don't support it.
Councilman Paulding.
Excuse me, I'm going to use some of my time to just go back to the Integrated Waste Management Authority, and then I'm going to go into the Independent Redistricting Commission. Couple facts. The county did a feasibility study before they made the decision to withdraw that said it was going to cost the taxpayers an extra $2 to $3 million per year. The county is now having to create an entirely new waste management division within the county that the taxpayers are paying for that's completely duplicate from the Integrated Waste Management Authority. That is fiscal irresponsibility. The incumbent mentioned that there was some kind of fine or penalty that would result in criminal penalties in the ordinance. That has never been levied upon a single business and is very common in those types of ordinances. And she mentioned that organization was crazy and out of control because it was implementing reasonable environmental policies like the bag ban or polystyrene. That shows how extreme this person is and why she's in the minority in our county. Now, going to the Independent Redistricting Commission, this is just a very easy decision to make. We absolutely want to take the power to make these kinds of decisions out of elected officials who will use their power to gerrymander for their own self-gain. That's in fact what we saw with the incumbent. It was reported they were going to remove Oceano from District 4. A year year prior, it was removed. Lo and behold, the community that supported me, and now the district favors the incumbent in terms of partisan registration. They've also done other things that have demonstrated that they will do anything to wield their power, and that's going against an independent redistricting commission, which would put the decision to redraw the lines in the hands of the people.
Councilman Paulding, the next question is also on governance. Do you support the proposal to make SLO County a charter county for the sole purpose of the filling of vacancies?
Nice segue. When we talk about the charter county, I think that it is in furtherance of an agenda. It's an agenda that is founded in a political party's view of who should have the power to appoint a supervisor when there's a vacancy. They were very upset, and the incumbent was very upset that the governor, a Democrat, appointed the District 3 supervisor when there was a vacancy. So what they're trying to do at this point in time is gerrymander the lines and then make it so it's a vote of the people to decide who will fill that particular vacancy in the future. It sounds great in theory, but when you consider the fact that the district lines are gerrymandered, it's again a political power play. And there's been word that there is one supervisor that wants to leave his office. And so the plan is clear. If he does leave, they will put it to a vote of the people as opposed to a Democratic governor essentially appointing that person, which would change the majority makeup of the board to their detriment. As Ms. Compton mentioned earlier, she really enjoys the 3-2 power, and you can see that it's got to her head clearly.
Supervisor Compton.
Look, I always think it's a good idea to let the voters decide. The reason this was brought forward by Supervisor Pashang was because it's happened 3 times in just the last 7 years. If you recall, when I took office, the supervisor died in office after a short amount of time. Paul Teixeira, the governor, appointed Karen Ray. I ran against Karen Ray. You had Adam Hill, who died in office. The governor appointed. I don't think anybody expected the governor to appoint a Republican for that office. It was a Democrat seat, so I don't know why he says we were so disappointed. We weren't surprised. Then you had Supervisor Pashang, who had a heart attack this year and came close to dying, was in the hospital for about 3 weeks. So he brought this issue forward. I honestly don't know if I support it or not at this point. It's coming back, I think, in the first week of May. I think the concept behind the idea is good. The people need to decide who their next supervisor is, not a governor, whether that's a Republican or Democrat governor. Let the people decide. When is it not good for the people to decide who their next elected official is? That's the way it's done in state. That's the way it's done in federal government. I do have some concerns about it. There's some people that are very educated on this, and they brought some concerns to the board the last time, and we asked some really good questions, and we asked staff to bring back some specifics with the questions. I have some concerns with this. So I don't know if I support it or not. I support the concept that the people should be the ultimate deciders. They live here, and it shouldn't be the governor on any office.
Supervisor Compton, the next question is on immigration. Are there adequate health services for undocumented immigrants in our county?
So I think this was mentioned in the last debate that you had. The county really doesn't get too involved with immigration services. Let me tell you the things that we do and that I've worked on since becoming a supervisor. I've worked with Euclides Valmoral, who's the chief consulate of the Mexican consulate out of Oxnard. He is the interface that we have with Mexico and our interface with him and the county. We worked with him when COVID, the outbreak occurred, to communicate to the farm workers, to the consulate, how we're handling it and providing them with resources where they can go to get information, to get testing, to get vaccines. The county does provide health education to documented and undocumented immigrants. We provide school-based nutritional counseling. We provide COVID education in coordination with the promontories. We provide health care and limited care for things such as immunizations, family planning, tuberculosis testing. We have reproductive health clinics for women and cancer screening. We don't discriminate. We don't have necessarily hospitals, but we send them to the CHC as a first choice. We don't coordinate with immigration or enforcement except to get referrals of people with TB status to us. Undocumenteds can apply for any of the programs, WIC, CalFresh, any of our programs. We had a massive COVID outreach to the Hispanic community. We vaccinated anyone. We never asked about immigration status or paperwork related to their immigration status. We do all of our COVID pamphlets in Spanish. We have outreach again through the promotores and through the Mistake-O women.
Thank you. Councilman Paulding?
Well, I just want to applaud the incumbent on all the work that the county has been doing, and I appreciate, the laundry list of things that the county provides in response to the question. One of the most disproportionately impacted demographics in the pandemic was the Latino population. When we look at the Latino population's needs, obviously healthcare is a huge one. The county doesn't have as much of a role, obviously, as the state does, but we need to be aware of those needs. We need to prioritize affordable housing. This is good policy for our economy, especially as it relates to the agriculture industry, which is obviously heavily reliant on our local agricultural workers. In addition, during the pandemic, because I care about these people, I was fortunate to prepare a list of resources, rent relief, a number of food programs that are provided in our community. And I physically canvassed neighborhoods in Oceano and Napomo, our most disadvantaged neighborhoods, to pass that information out to the community so our Latino residents were aware and could avail themselves of that. And we need somebody who does truly care about that community and will prioritize their needs, and I hope to be that supervisor.
The next question is also on immigration. Councilman Paulding, what do you think of the way local police and SLO County officials treat undocumented immigrants, including their cooperation with United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE?
First and foremost, it's more of a federal and state issue than it is a local issue. I do know that the Sheriff's Department is prohibited by state law from sharing certain information with ICE as it relates to those that are undocumented criminals and when they're released from jail. The BOS, the Board of Supervisors, also doesn't have authority over this issue, so it isn't a question that falls within the scope and purview of what the Board of Supervisors does. However, public safety is a top priority of mine, and when we look at the unincorporated community of Napomo, we have about 2 sheriff's deputies that patrol that entire community from Oceano all the way out to Napomo and Highway 166. And we have not been able to increase our law enforcement presence. You may hear from the incumbent that we've made some strides with a community action team to do some homeless outreach. Many of those officers have been reallocated. But the fact is, we need a sheriff's substation in Napomo as well. We've got a community that has grown in population almost to the size of the city of Rio Grande, yet has not had the services and infrastructure to really keep pace with a community of that size. And I hope to work with law enforcement to ensure that we prioritize public safety in the budget and increase the number of deputies patrolling our streets and the facilities that they have to work out of in Napomo.
Supervisor Compton.
So, well, we found one thing we agree on. Yeah, that's a federal issue. I have not had any complaints to my office about our sheriff being unfair or any complaints about ICE, anything like that. It's a federal issue, and Ian has not reached out to me about anything like that. And that's really not one of the issues that's that I hear from constituents. The issues I hear from constituents are water, homelessness, the ability to afford to live here, to buy homes, have their children, be able to afford to stay around here after they graduate from college. Regarding the sheriff's substation and the sheriff, we have consistently on this board increased the sheriff's budgets. We don't micromanage any departments. We can't tell the sheriff you have to hire people, you have to build something. There is a sheriff's substation plan for South County. We have the land for it. This sheriff made the decision to put more boots on the ground instead of building out a sheriff's substation, and he's waiting for cooperative money to help build that station and grants that he believes will be available pretty soon. But I think right now at this time when people's vehicles are being broken into and we have Prop 47 and Prop 57 and zero bail and you can't even leave your purse on the seat in the car, I think we'd rather have boots on the ground and people working actively to help our citizens that are struggling with all the increase in crime due to voters' choices that they've made in Sacramento policies.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned homelessness because that is our next topic.
Okay.
What would you do to increase the supply of affordable housing in SLO County?
Is that you or me? It's me?
It's you.
Okay. So we've done many things since I've been in office. We've streamlined the building and planning process and department. We got rid of the in-lieu housing tax, which was a tax on new homes, and that's something Mr. Paulding supports. I don't believe in taxing anything that we have a short supply of. We're working to hire new planners to speed up the process. In 2016, we adopted a workforce housing subdivision ordinance, which gives developers greater flexibility to design small lot infill projects. In 2016, the county funded and authorized the county's affordable housing initiative package, which included exempting affordable housing projects from public facility fees, waiving permit processing fees for affordable projects and housing, streamlining and removing barriers to the construction of accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, in the unincorporated county. We did a feasibility study and a public opinion poll to see if a $40 million affordable housing bond would pass to share the costs. We revised the county's CEQA guidelines, that's the California Environmental Quality Act, to streamline environmental review for projects and formalize coordination procedures. We led a collaborative effort between the county, the 7 cities, to address the region's affordable housing needs. And we approved a Los Osos community plan update, which includes a comprehensive vision for the build out of Los Osos and a community plan that lays out the framework. So we've done lots of things to work on affordable housing policies in the county at the level that we're working on them.
Councilman Paulding.
Just a quick question to you, sir. You mentioned homelessness, but then the question was about affordable housing. Will there be another question on homelessness? Okay,
yes.
Excellent. Thank you. If I can start my time now, then. So affordable housing is a huge issue here in our community, in the state of California, obviously, as well. We need a balanced approach. It means, identifying areas that it makes sense in our community so we can ensure that we only build in appropriate locations and essentially protect what we love about our community, our open spaces, our scenic coastline, our agriculture. On the city of Rio Grande, I've been proud to work on affordable housing projects. We approved a 64-unit partnership for a multifamily housing complex with the Housing Authority of San Luis Obispo. We've talked about upzoning East Grand Avenue. Everybody knows our beautiful village, but the further you go, west towards Grover Beach, we could probably use some work there on Grand Avenue. We have a number of businesses that are, or storefronts that are empty and properties that are vacant. I do support inclusionary housing. This is a policy that is intended to require developers to incorporate a percentage of affordable units that are rented out to folks that make only a certain amount of money, or they are responsible for paying into a fund that then partners with organizations like People's Self-Help Housing to build that affordable housing. My opponent calls it a house tax. The problem is she called it a house tax in 2018, which was politically expedient for her. Then she voted for it the following year. It ended up working because it was approved. It produced 220 units, and then they voted against it because the Home Builders Association lobbied against it.
Councilman Paulding, would you vote for a sales tax increase? And if so, would you restrict it to fund something specific such as affordable housing?
Great question. I'm going to complete my response on the other one first. What I wanted to mention is that the affordable housing crisis needs to be addressed with more than just inclusionary housing. We should be looking at a housing bond. We should be promoting accessory dwelling units. That's another program that I've kind of led the charge on, having formed the San Luis Obispo County Accessory Dwelling Unit Task Force to truly incentivize those. And then I also wanted to say, as it relates to development in general, I have vowed not to take a single dime from the real estate development industry, whereas my opponent over the years has taken over $200,000. So when we look at development, we need to understand who's bought out and who isn't. Now, when we talk specifically about sales tax, it's one of the only ways that we can fix our roads. I, like my opponent, support Prop 13. One of the benefits of that is that we can obviously continue to keep money within families. I also practice as an estate planning attorney and business attorney and assist people in doing that. However, the disadvantage is property taxes raised through, which would otherwise come to the county to be able to put towards our roads, are not available because of Prop 13, because it's restricted. So we have to look at other revenue measures like sales tax. And Measure J, which was on the ballot back in 2016, was supported by 66-point-something% of our entire community, including South County. It would have generated a couple $100 million to put towards fixing our roads, and the opponent, is ideologically opposed to it, and we're never going to fix our roads if we are that rigid in our thinking.
Supervisor Compton?
Okay, let me just first say, that's just a flat-out lie that I've taken $200,000 from developers. I only raised $300,000 in the last election. And you want to talk about campaign contribution limits, I'll be glad to do that. You wrote a letter to the Board of Supervisors on November 12th saying you firmly believe no candidate should be forced to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars to compete in local elections with campaign limits in place, adopting a donation limit, et cetera. It corrupts people. But I look at your 460 report. You took $40,000 from one person last time, the Holland family. You took $31,000 from the District Council of Laborers, the Union of Operating Engineers, Domestic Workers American Action Fund, the Tri-County Central Laborers Council PAC, Southern California Pipe Fitters, Sheet Metal Workers International, IBEW PAC, Teamsters Union, Laborers Local, District Council of Iron Workers. It goes on and on. So if you want to talk about that, we can go down that road. Repeat the question. On sales tax. No, I would not support a sales tax. We're taxed enough here in this county, in this state. The measure that was proposed before was Measure J. It was rammed forward by SlowCog to get matching funds, and no, it's a 1.5% sales tax. If you looked at it, wasn't going to pass, and then they went out to a consultant and talked to the consultant and said, how do we get this to pass? And the consultant said, you got to get the bike lobby involved. Millions of dollars of that money that was generated was going to go to the bike lobby. So no, I don't support any more taxes. I'm firm on we're taxed enough. I want less government, less government intervention, less taxes, and more personal freedoms, not more taxes.
Supervisor Compton, what programs do you propose to address the homeless challenge?
So we do have a challenge in the state, in this county. California has 165,000 homeless people with 41 state programs and 19 different departments. The state has done a terrible job. The state spends $75,000 per person on homeless individuals here in California. In the last 2 years, there's been a 39% increase in homeless individuals in the state of California. It's not a problem that just one little county like San Luis Obispo can solve. There's a huge component with addiction, which people don't want to face. This can't be ignored. San Luis County itself has 17 different programs and 15 different departments that manage it with a $10 million budget spent on it. The Board of Supervisors has identified homelessness as one of our top priorities. We've had a legislative platform to repeal Prop 47 and 57 and zero bail to help law enforcement combat this problem. On Tuesday, I mentioned we just put forward a homeless initiative and spending plan, which provided a county homeless operations center. We've never had that before, converting a building on Oklahoma Avenue, and a new homelessness division with personnel to support it in a budget. So now we have a new governance and funding structure. Every single one of the 7 incorporated cities and all the homeless organizations are on board. We have 40 Prada. We have a detox facility. All of this has happened since I've been in office. We have a new mental health facility. We launched our CAT teams. We voted on 20 pallet homes for Grover Beach. We've established safe parking. We have a blue bag program. We increased our housing now from 70 to 80 participants. We hired a behavioral health manager. We increased our GIS mapping capability and increased our shelter capability.
Councilman Paulding.
Thank you. As you heard in my opponent's opening remarks, she made a derogatory statement about the debate that we had that she didn't attend earlier this week, hosted by the Citizens Commission on Homelessness, which until they identified how big of an issue this is in our community, it all started when one of the citizens took a picture of a woman defecating in San Luis Obispo. Until they wrote a report about what the county and other agencies are doing wrong in terms of coordinating to attack this issue with a unified front, did we see the level of action that we have seen recently from the Board of Supervisors. And I commend the Board of Supervisors, including my opponent, for voting to increase staffing and actually once and for all address this issue. And so, what I want to also mention is that for the community, because of state law, if we want to clear encampments, for example, we have to have shelter alternatives for folks. And so it's all about building the capacity in our community to house individuals. It's about funding the services necessary to treat the drug addiction and mental health issues. And then ultimately the permanent supportive housing for these folks. I've been proud as an Arroyo Grande City Council member to work with the faith-based community to bring them together to talk about how they can be involved with safe parking programs, which is just one piece of a very complicated puzzle.
Councilman Paulding, please share your views about the county's inclusionary housing policy and why you support or oppose it, and how you might like to see it changed.
As was discussed earlier, there was a decision recently by the Board of Supervisors to repeal that policy, and it was motivated by the development industry. The development industry maintains that that policy shifts the cost to a home buyer, when in fact, it requires developers to incorporate affordable housing into their projects or pay into a fund. It is not a tax. It is a fee, just like any other fee, road fees that go to fixing our roads when we approve development projects, park fees, public facility fees. The reason it was repealed is because special interests have taken control of the Board of Supervisors. Let's look at the numbers. Over the last 8 years, the incumbent has taken $124,000 from developers. That's 143 developers. From the real estate industry, $59,000 at 120 donations. Others include the wine grape grower industry, $56,000, 71 donations. Ag business, $92,000, 147 donations. Oil and gas, $55,000, 79 donations. This doesn't even include all the recent campaign contributions she's been taking. In many cases, we see projects approved for the very developers that are buying her vote. That is not what we need. We need to restore transparency, accountability in our local government. We need to bring integrity back to the Board of Supervisors. And that's what I plan to do, and support good housing policy at the same time.
Supervisor Compton.
No, I don't support the inclusionary housing policy at all. It is a tax on homes. Do you really think a developer is going to build a home, have to eat this tax and not pass it on to the person that buys or rents that home? Of course not. They're going to pass it on, and it makes houses more expensive. We have the most expensive houses along the coast, even sometimes more expensive than Santa Barbara County. And yeah, the developers and builders in this county do support me. The real estate industry does support me because they know they're the ones that have to build the homes and they have to get the job done. That's why they don't support you. You support wacko environmental policies that prohibit them from doing it. When you have stormwater capture projects that require from the state water to be drinkable water standards if it rains on your project and comes off your project, that's crazy. Developers can't economically build a home in California when they have requirements like that. When they have things that are measured in the parts per billion, they can't do it. So yeah, I have the income generators in this county that are supporting me. Agriculture supports me. Real estate supports me. Small businesses support me. I have support from more small businesses. In fact, the #1 small business in Aurora Grande supports me in Napomo than you have. So I have the people that are generating the jobs and producing the income and creating a workforce in this county supporting me, and I'm proud of it. I do not support the inclusionary housing policy. We tried it. They made some tweaks to it. They brought it back to the board a couple years ago. We said, okay, we're going to give it a couple years and see if it works. It didn't work, and Even Dawn Ortiz-Legg doesn't support it.
You may
So
have
what does
touched
that tell
upon
you?
this already. Supervisor Compton, but the next question. What is your philosophy on large developments, and how would you balance the impacts on neighborhoods and water supply?
So, we're a rural county. I moved to Napomo over 20 years ago when Vaughn's wasn't even there. People that live in rural areas like to live in rural areas. When you think we live in a crowded county and you fly overhead, you notice it's really not that crowded. Only 4% of our county is developed. In Napomo specifically, we have a growth ordinance restriction. It's 1.8%. We've never achieved that growth restriction except when Monarch Dunes or Trilogy was first being built. You have to have the resources to support development. That means water, that means schools, that means infrastructure. For example, in Napomo, any new project that comes forward can't be dependent on groundwater. It has to have supplemental water. That's to protect our groundwater basins. So, we need housing. You can't have it both ways. You can't say we want to let our kids come here and stay here and graduate from college and stay here, but there's no housing, or the houses are $650,000. You can't have it both ways. I like the idea with development of keeping it for local individuals and for local homes and giving preference to local individuals rather than this just becoming a retirement community, which it seems to be happening. But development and growth have to have the infrastructure there, or I don't support it.
Councilman Paulding.
When I knock doors and talk to neighbors and members of the community, growth comes up a lot, especially in the context of Napomo, where you've seen a lot of growth without that infrastructure to really support the growth. Having grown up here, lived here my whole life, one of my primary objectives as somebody who lives here and loves this community is to preserve and enhance the quality of life that we all enjoy. So any large development has to be looked at through that lens, I guess. And we have to balance those needs of, does a project produce too much traffic? Does it, have enough water to support it? Are we negatively impacting the environment, removing oak trees, things like that? So those are all things that are generally identified when a project is proposed through the CEQA process, which is the California Environmental Quality Act, through an environmental impact report. But again, I will reiterate to you that do you want somebody who's taking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars from the real estate development industry, making decisions that will impact our quality of life, especially as it relates to growth? Or do you want somebody who has vowed with integrity, and this was since 2018, not to accept a single dime from that industry? Because I want to make decisions for the benefit of our community, the community that I grew up in, and the community I love, not for those special interests.
Councilman Paulding, what would be the benefit to Napomo to embrace cityhood?
The question entails the notion of incorporation. And it also comes up, I would say 1 in 5 members of the Napomo community that I talk to at their doors, and I've talked to thousands, do mention that. And I'd say 1 in 5 are probably pro-incorporation, meaning, again, they've seen this community grow without the leadership to ensure enough services. We talked about public safety, only a couple deputies that serve that whole area. That means longer response times to calls. We would see, through incorporation, the unincorporated community shift to a city with city services, a whole 5-person city council of elected representatives, a police department, a fire department, a parks and rec department. There are advantages, but it takes revenue in order to fund those services. I actually worked on a project when I was studying city and regional planning at Cal Poly back in 2006, where we studied Napomo and whether it could incorporate, and we did workshops with the community. I think that it's a question that ultimately needs to go to the people of Napomo to decide, and that would be through a petition. And if there is a majority of the community that wants to pursue that, then absolutely, I would be happy to work with them as their representative to an end that would probably put me out of office in terms of representing that particular community, because they ultimately have a city council.
Supervisor Compton.
I just want to go back to a comment that Mr. Paulding made about he's agreed not to take a single dime from development. It isn't that he has agreed to not to take a single dime. They would not give him a single dime. Okay, regarding incorporation, this is something that was talked about, gosh, when I first got in office. There have been studies that have been done over the years. The Napomo Community Services District did a study. There was a group, trying to recall their name, it was like Protect Napomo, or it was called Save the Mesa, that was very interested in it. I'm not an advocate or opposed to incorporation. If, the people want to incorporate, that's fine. It would not put a supervisor out of a job. I have incorporated cities right now in my district with Arroyo Grande. Supervisor Ortiz-Legg has all of San Luis in her district, and that's incorporated, so it has nothing to do with job protection. But there are laws with incorporation, and that have changed over the years. I think, I want to say the last city that was incorporated was either Oxnard or Carpinteria, and it was a long time ago. So the laws have changed so that it's not that easy to do. If you want to incorporate, you have to provide all those services now. You have to provide fire, you have to provide water, you have to provide sheriff, you have to provide police, and you have to pay for that. So you usually end up having to tax your citizens more if you do that. And you also have to pay back the services that have been compensated in the past from the county. So it's usually not feasible to do that unless you have some big industry that's paying sales taxes in the area that can support that. If we had a car dealership or, a Walmart or something like that, then it may be more feasible. Right now, one of our biggest income generators is Phillips 66 and Jocko's.
Supervisor Compton. The county supervisor position is statutorily overtly nonpartisan, meaning the holder of the office is non-biased without political bias. Should campaign literature mention political parties?
Should campaign literature? It is a nonpartisan seat. I tell people that when they ask me, walking precincts, what's your political party? I get that question a lot, and I say it's a nonpartisan seat. We don't vote on things that are Republican or Democrat. But I'll tell you, people are interested to know that, and my response is always afterwards, after saying it's nonpartisan, will they want out of your political party? I'm not going to lie. I'm not ashamed that I'm a Republican, and you tell them that. So, I don't know. It's a campaign. I think when you look at the numbers and the results of campaigns, they usually fall on partisan lines, whether that's right or wrong. That's usually how it happens. I guess I don't have a problem if somebody puts it on their campaign literature or doesn't put it on their campaign literature. When you're in office, you're to treat everybody equally. I see there's people out here that are supporters of my opponent. I've met with every one of them. They've sat down in my office, and you have to do that when you're in office. You have to meet with people, whether they like you, whether they don't like you, regardless of their political party. And that's just your job. So I guess I don't have any feeling one way or another if it should be on literature.
Councilman Paulding.
I don't have a problem with anybody at any level putting their political affiliation on their own campaign literature. I do have a problem when candidates misrepresent what their party is and send that literature out to the community. For example, right here, I have a piece of mail that Lynn Compton paid for back in 2018 that says she is a Democrat. She's on the Democratic voter guide. I think that's unethical. I want to also just talk about the notion of what nonpartisanship is and why we should value that. Do we want to continue to bring the national politics into our county, the politics of division, or do we want to try to focus on the things that matter, tackling homelessness, fixing our roads, addressing affordable housing? On the city council, I've demonstrated that I can do that it's possible. Now, it helps that I have some great colleagues that I serve with, but the reality is there is opportunity to take advantage of depolarizing and unifying truly our community with our Board of Supervisors right now, and I hope to be that person. And in closing, I had one other comment. Oh, on the notion of whether I've been offered money from developers, I have, at least on 5 occasions, and I've told them no because I have integrity, something obviously the person sitting next to me doesn't.
Councilman Paulding, what is your position on project labor agreements or community workforce agreements?
I support community workforce agreements for two reasons. The first is that when we build public infrastructure projects, like our Central Coast Blue Recycled Water Project, where we're generating 1,000 acre-feet of new water for our community, the goal shouldn't just be to address our water supply issue. It should be to hire local people, local workers, the people that are going to not only be the recipients of our taxpayer dollars, but then in turn spend their money here in the community. That is a double advantage that we should all essentially support. When we talked about the project labor agreement, they're also called community workforce agreements, at the city council level, it was a 5-0 decision. The whole city council supported it for the reasons that I mentioned. We've got the recycled water project in the city of San Luis Obispo. They've demonstrated with their project labor agreement or community workforce agreement that 80% of the contractors that they've hired are local. It's working. Now, you'll hear from my opponent that they increase costs. That's subjective. Some studies have shown, especially in the affordable housing arena, that they can increase costs. I don't think that they belong on all projects. But I do think it's something that we need to seriously evaluate when we spend public dollars. And of course, when we bid projects, they should be competitively bid. And I completely support the public process of awarding contracts to those contractors that have submitted both the most responsible and responsive and lowest bid.
Supervisor Compton.
No, I don't support project labor agreements. They do increase the cost of a project. Every study that's been brought to the county by our staff and that I've looked at otherwise show that they increased a project from 20 to 40%. When you're telling taxpayers when we're building a jail and you're telling taxpayers it's going to be $2 to $4 million more on top of a project that taxpayers have to pay for, no, I don't support that. And this is why Jimmy has all the union support. I'm going to give you an example. The carpenters have supported me for the last 2 years. This year, the carpenters said to me, okay, we want you to interview and we want you to fill out a form. I did it. It was due on Friday. Our interview was due on Monday. Filled out the form on Friday. On Saturday, I got a call saying that Mr. Paulding was taking pictures with the union carpenters in front of a dugout in Napomo. So I knew the writing was on the wall. I wasn't going to get the endorsement. On Monday, I had the interview with them, and the question that I answered regarding PLAs was not to their liking. And they said, unless you can sign on to this and will advocate for this, we can't support you. Mr. Paulding got a $13,000 check right after that and their endorsement. I don't support them. They increase the cost of projects. Central Coast Blue is a perfect example. A 3-county area, he pulled out of that project for almost a year to pander to the unions until he realized 2 other cities were going to go without him, and then he sheepishly pulled himself back into that project just to pander to the unions and PLAs. So I'm all for hiring local workers. The problem is 90% of our county is non-union. We're mostly a non-union county. When you have a PLA, these non-union workers have to go through the union shops and pay union wages.
Supervisor Compton, there's been discussion about allowing rural property owners to provide campsites. Do you support this?
To provide what?
Campsites.
Okay, I don't know if I support that yet. There's been a definite push coming to the county to put yurts. I didn't even know what a yurt was. I guess I'm not hip enough to put yurts on people's properties and things like that. There are some in the hospitality industry that are looking at it as a profit opportunity. They have vineyards. They want people to be able to camp in their vineyards. I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. We're kind of a tourist attraction area for people, wedding destinations, et cetera. I think they can be possibly done in a way that is not problematic, but I do have some concerns with it. Do mobile homes, are mobile homes considered a possible part of this program? Are we going to have mobile homes on every property? Do they destroy zoning? Do CC&Rs dictate? Do they, violate any local code enforcement regulations? You have health problems. Where do people use the bathroom if you have these on the property? Our code enforcement is fully resourced. We can't put any more people on that. So I don't know if I support it or not. It's coming back to the board. I'm going to ask a lot of questions, and I think there's pros and cons with it, but I'm not sure where I stand on it exactly.
Councilman Paulding?
I think it's an interesting concept. When I look at the priorities that the board is currently undertaking, I don't think it should be one, and I think that the board should have a better process for trying to encourage board members not to agendize pet projects, which I believe is that's one example. Meaning, in the city of Arroyo Grande, I advocated for a process that we come up with 10 council top priorities. So we could say we're focused on these things, and every time a council member says, oh, I think we should do this, we should do that, we have a discussion as a council to say, is this within our 10 priorities? And if it's not, are we going to shift staff resources and deprioritize another level of effort or issue that we're working on in order to tackle this new issue? And what we see with the County Board of Supervisors is it's like pet projects galore. You know, there are so many different things that they've been working on that if they focus their time on tackling the issues that we've been talking about tonight, instead of a pet project like, raising campaign finance contribution limits to $25,000 per individual, which my opponent supported. And she mentioned that I took a big donation in a past campaign, from the Holland Family Alliance, who wanted to support change on the Board of Supervisors because of the tragic death of Andrew Holland in the jail, who was strapped to a chair for 46 hours and died of a pulmonary embolism. And then on that note, I will conclude my comments.
Final question. Councilman Paulding, do you think the 2020 election locally was conducted fairly and the results counted accurately?
Absolutely. I got within 60 votes of taking this District 4 office back in 2018. Did I call for a recount? No. Did I trust the fact that my staff, my campaign staff, and my opponent's campaign staff were sitting there in the county clerk's office watching every ballot getting counted? Did I, trust that the county clerk and elections official is doing their job and that the staff is working to, do the job in a competent way and ensure the integrity and fairness of our local elections? Absolutely. It's often said that I will align with a particular member of the Board of Supervisors, and that's certainly the case that the incumbent makes. The reality is the one that she aligns with the most is Supervisor Debbie Arnold, who has actually called for hand-counting ballots. And along with Debbie Arnold, she did not defend Tommy Gong, our former elections official, when there were racial slurs hurled at him and when the integrity of our local elections were called into question. Supervisor Bruce Gibson said at the dais, he said, look, we all have a duty here in light of all these people here saying that this thing was stolen at the local level to stand up for the integrity of our local elections and to back our elections official. And Lynn Compton said nothing. Her silence is deafening. Do we really want these kinds of people in these leadership positions in these especially divided times? The answer is no.
Supervisor Compton.
Do I think the election was conducted fairly? Yeah, I do think the election was conducted fairly. I don't think that our voting machines are corrupt or anything like that. But I'm going to give you an example with my own family. I got my daughter sitting right here. 3 ballots were screwed up in my family. One went to the wrong address. One we didn't get, and I forget whether there was a third error on the third one. So in my own home of 3 individuals, all 3 ballots were screwed up. Do I think there's room for cheating and stealing elections? I do. Do I think that happened in our county? No, I don't think that happened. But I think that there's a lot of problems with our voter integrity, and people have concerns. To me, it's not my duty to back county officials, as Bruce Gibson wanted us to do. My duty is to listen to constituents who have concerns and see what we can do to change that or alleviate their concerns. And there's significant concerns in this county with election integrity. And if you don't have fair elections, what do you have? You're running a banana republic. So regarding the Tommy Gong and defending Tommy Gong, that has been the biggest lie perpetrated in this county, and I'm done with that. That was during COVID. We had one person call in out of about 200 people that day who did make a racial slur on a recorded call. And people have the right to say whatever they want to say when they call in. We may not like it. As elected officials, we may be name called, but it's not my job to defend another elected official because one person on a recorded line calls in and makes a slur. It's not my job. I don't hear any other supervisor defending me when all the haters come in and call me every name in the book, including racist, et cetera.
Thank
So
you.
that's
As
not
promised earlier, we have saved 3 minutes per candidate for closing statements, and we're going to do it in reverse order of the opening statements. Therefore, Supervisor Compton, your closing statement.
All righty. My priorities remain the same. Nothing is hidden as they have been in the past 7 years. They remain the same. I will continue to work to assist constituents as I have done in the past, regardless of their political party or opinions. I meet with everyone. I'm honored to have helped individuals and am mindful of the policies and decisions I make that they have lasting implications on people's lives. I've demonstrated a record on issues including water, protections for taxpayers, opposition to projects that don't have measurable results, and in voting no on salary increases that don't mirror what taxpayers receive in compensation. After all, they're footing the bill. My opponent cannot say that. My opponent didn't even have a record to voting the last time he ran. He never had bothered to vote. Now he does, and his votes are vastly different than mine. My opponent approved a price hike on both water and wastewater in Arroyo Grande. That hike was an increase of 6.4% in April, and then again each January through 2026. He delayed and held hostage Central Coast Blue, we talked about that, while trying to get his labor concessions, and then realized the other two cities wouldn't go along with it, so he voted to rejoin their efforts. Again, these project labor agreements increase the cost of projects 20 to 40%. Was this to curry favor from the thousands of dollars originating from out-of-county unions? I don't know. Mr. Paulding is publicly and enthusiastically supported by the progressive county of San Luis Obispo, who also supported Supervisor Adam Hill and Bruce Gibson. You have to ask yourself why. My opponent always votes to increase compensation packages and excel salaries for employees, and has never seen a tax hike he didn't like or a pay raise he didn't approve. My opponent is on record for voting for ridiculous programs, such as the one where he voted to pay APCD employees not to drive their car to work with monies hijacked from small businesses. Or on another note, his fine for non-mask wearers of $500 per violation. Why not just start charging all of us for breathing the air? The corrupt IWMA that he enthusiastically supports routinely drafts ordinances that call for jail time and fines to be imposed on those who dare ignore the ordinances, such as the plastic ban ordinance or those who distribute plastic straws. He didn't listen when people begged him not to do the roundabouts on the 227. He thought he knew better. That's the problem. I've been repeatedly endorsed by the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association and received the Hero of the Taxpayer Award for San Luis County. I've supported law enforcement and am supported by the past Arroyo Grande Police Chief, Steve Annabali, who I worked with. I have support from the largest and most successful businesses in Arroyo Grande and in Napomo, and the support from the most important sectors in our economy, including agriculture and home builders who we need. You can't have it both ways. You can't bash home builders and then want more housing in this area. Jimmy Paulding claims he promises to show up in a recent post. We can't afford Jimmy. Your hardworking taxpayers are begging you, please don't show up. We can't afford you. Thank you tonight for your time. I respectfully ask for your vote once again in this election.
Councilman Paulding?
My goodness. Was that entertaining? And I think it was maybe 5% true. I'll just mention the funny story about my voting record. I voted in every single election except for the 2014 one. 2014. And I was going to law school at the time. And I had filled out my ballot and put more work into that ballot than I had in any prior year because I was going to law school, getting politically motivated. I'm going to throw my lovely wife, Kendra, under the bus on this. I was in Santa Barbara, and I had expected her to drop my ballot off, and she didn't. So it was one election that I didn't vote. I've been a proud, citizen engaging in my right to vote in our elections. So again, just another example of the spin that you get from my opponent. You have a clear choice. You got two options. All of this, boogeyman stuff isn't real. I've been serving on the AG City Council, where I've been endorsed by 3 of my colleagues, as I mentioned earlier, a Republican, an Independent, and a Democrat. I've been endorsed by 4 local former police chiefs from Morro Bay, from SLO, from the city of AG, Rick Terbork, Grover Beach. I've got a whole host of local elected official endorsements. You go to my website, look at the endorsements there, compare it to the person sitting next to me. Most of the cities in the county, when you look at their elected officials, do not support Lynn Compton because of the types of divisive decisions she's made, which have not only breached the public's trust, but destroyed and damaged the relationships with the cities. We need a county supervisor who wants to bring people together to solve problems, and we've got problems, folks. I have demonstrated my track record as a council member. I am prepared to do that. I want to unify our community. I don't want to engage in the partisan politics. I want to get special interests out of government. And it's not true that I delayed the Central Coast Blue project. I simply directed our staff to go back to negotiations after Pismo Beach and Grover Beach said, hey, we don't want to do a project labor agreement. And ultimately, the project continued on its path of environmental design, permitting, all that stuff. It was never delayed. My message to you is clear. Vote, 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 vote. I lost by 60 votes last time. I think we've got it this time if we continue the hard work of working together to change the Board of Supervisors once and for all. Because as you can see, the level of toxicity, division that we have emanating from the person sitting to my right needs to change and needs to change now. So I ask for your vote on June 7th. And we can accomplish this together. So finally, because I have a few more seconds, please get involved in the campaign. This is about South County Strong. How do we work together to improve the quality of life for our residents? You can sign up on my website, jimmypaulding.org. If you want to walk doors, if you want to make phone calls, if you want to write postcards, this is grassroots for change. So thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Supervisor Compton, and thank you, Councilman Paulding, for your preparation, courage to serve publicly, for your respect to the voters to prepare. Thank you to Latino Outreach for your partnership. A special thank you to my fellow volunteers at the League of Women Voters, some of them who have been here since 4 o'clock. And a final thank you to the constituents. This is why we volunteer for the League of Women Voters, people like you who are civically engaged and are dedicated enough to be out till 9 o'clock on a weekday night. Good night, safe travels.